No worries.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's Andy. I'm your host, and I have a company called Integrity Data Insights, and I help other companies with their reporting and analytics to help them grow. And I'm thrilled to have my guest on the show today, Andrew Miller. He's the Director of Sales Operations at the Killer Brownie Company. So, Andrew, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, of course, Andy. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, and I feel bad. I gotta apologize to everybody immediately that you can't get the brownie samples through the through the internet. But if you haven't had the Killer Brownie product, it's a fabulous product right here, made right here in Dayton, Ohio. And so, yeah, Andrew, tell me more about the company and what you guys do.
Yeah, okay. So, like you said, if you're not familiar with Killer Brownie, we have our manufacturing facility here in Miamisburg, where I am. The kind of history of the company is we started in the bakery of Dorothy Lane Market, obviously in Dayton. At the time, back in the 80s, it was really just sold in the bakery and made in the bakery there. But over time, it definitely grew a bit of like a cult following, especially obviously locally, and kind of started expanding as other grocery stores and other retailers had interest in carrying the product. Kind of jump forward to a little over 10 years ago, Shemin Ross, our president and CEO currently, kind of decided to see what she could do with the company, and kind of went out to try to sell it more and to grow it. And she started managing it with, I think, around 8 employees at the time.
Oh, wow.
In a little extra space behind Dorothy Lane Market. And presently we've grown to, I think we're just over 140 employees now.
Wow.
Available in all kinds of grocery stores, food service, C-stores, pretty much everywhere in the country. So it's been a kind of a roller coaster of a decade as the company's grown.
Yeah, that's impressive. So for those don't familiar, like Dorothy Lane Market's a very high-end grocery store. I don't know if you'd want to call it that.
And I would definitely say that's what, if you're not familiar with our product, that's definitely what we're all about. It's, really a decadent gourmet brownie is how we typically describe it. Most people, when they think of Killer Brownie, they think of our signature product, which is a multi-layer brownie with a layer of caramel in the middle. So it's normally like brownie, caramel brownie with, all kinds of different flavors and inclusions and things like that.
Man. Yeah, and just for full disclosure too, my wife's nonprofit moved right near you guys, and so every time I come, you could kind of smell it in the air. So it's
yeah, we hear that from all the businesses around all the time.
So how many different kind of brownies how many different, I don't know if SKU is the right word, but just in general, kind of
yeah. So I mean, we obviously have kind of our like bread and butter, main popular flavors. We carry typically, I think, 20 to 30 flavors, and then quite a few more SKUs, just because most of the flavors that we make we'll package in a variety of ways, depending on, if it's retail, or like I mentioned before, we do, wholesale food service type things. And then we also do seasonal items. So, right now we just finished up doing our pumpkin brownies that are going to be, available in stores soon, peppermint after that. So we do a lot of things like that throughout the year, depending on the seasons too.
Man, I'm gonna have to go get some after this. Making me hungry. So let's talk a little bit about your role. So your title is Director of Sales Operations. Just tell me a little bit about what your role involves and kind of what that's like.
Yeah, so I would say that the main focus of me and my department as a whole is really the order fulfillment side of the business. Just making sure that our customers are getting their brownies, that they're ordering on time, and the full quantity. But a big part of my role specifically is kind of tying the two, sales and operations together, so they're kind of working in unison. I tell people a lot of times I'm just trying to make sure that sales is selling what we're making and operations is making what we're selling, and also just trying to keep those moving together, especially as we talk about growth, which is such a big part of being a part of Killer Brownie, is the awesome sales growth we've had. It's really important that we're always kind of keeping an eye on those two departments kind of moving together, because you don't want to end up in a situation of selling more than you can make or making more than you can sell. So it's a big part of kind of balancing those two departments together.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be challenging. So yeah, because is it? And I guess do you guys kind of plan out quite a bit in advance, kind of what you're gonna make?
I mean, to the best of our abilities, I guess is what I would say. We do. So once again, a kind of a big part of my role is overseeing the production schedule and kind of the different team members that are a part of that. We do the best that we can with, taking all the sales data and kind of interpreting it to put together forecasts. Um, we typically are trying to look a year out, but once again, there's always really awesome opportunities that are sometimes coming up each week of, hey, this customer is interested in this brownie, would we be able to supply that to them? Or, we have different people reaching out about maybe unique flavors that they want to carry. And is that something that we'd be able to do? So, as much planning as we try to do, there is a little bit of, listening to the
Yeah.
customers and trying to react to what they need and what they want. So
Right. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to get into. I mean, we don't have to go too detailed, but just a little bit of the nuts and bolts. Like, I think you were telling me earlier, which was kind of cool, is like you were saying, there's kind of two different production lines, kind of like the
mhm.
baking and the packaging. Maybe even go into a little bit of that and kind of how you coordinate that those
Yeah,
parts.
definitely. So, once again, kind of speaking to the type of product we are, this multi-layer brownie, as you can imagine, the production to make those is pretty involved. And so we do have it split into two kind of main manufacturing groups with our baking and our packaging. Um, it's a pretty interesting process. I myself had never really worked in food manufacturing before joining the company a couple years ago. And so it's a real, beast of a process sometimes, just because it can be a huge amount of time to do all the different layers, bake, let them cool. Some of the
Wow.
product needs to be frozen before it can be cut, to allow for, the product to kind of maintain those nice clean lines that you like to see. And
Yeah.
so most of the time our production schedule is kind of written in the way where what we're baking one day is kind of an all day process, and then it's being packaged the following day. And so there's a lot of kind of those groups needing to work together because, we make a variety of different products. Obviously, I've referenced our signature multi-layer, but we do, more traditional brownies and things like that as well. And so there's definitely a lot of balancing, because what might be a really difficult brownie for the baking team to put together, maybe we're packaging it in a way that can be done really quickly. Or, the
Yeah.
inverse, baking, hey, this is our easiest brownie, let's make even more, but the packaging lines can only go so fast. And so there's definitely a lot of balance and a lot of manufacturing practices that I've had to learn working with all of our different operations managers of, what works well together, how do we balance those days, and how do we make it so that way we're having kind of even consistency between both rooms.
Yeah, and I don't know, just might be too specific, but are the same kind of resources do both, or do you kind of have people that are dedicated to one or the other? Like, do you kind of move people around between the two
I would
disciplines?
say it's mostly specialized. We have a specific baking manager and packaging manager that have their own dedicated teams that go
Yeah,
and run those rooms. But like any small or growing company, there's a little bit of everybody, being a part of everything that happens around here. And so there's definitely moments where those teams support each other one way or another, but for the most part, they are specialized. And I think once again, it kind of just speaks to the type of product we have, that there is, so much that goes into producing it.
yeah, I've always been amazed. I mean, I've had the privilege of going on some, tours of different manufacturers and such, and it's amazing. Just it blows my mind how manufacturers keep track of everything and how they, just how things are running so smoothly. Yeah, you told me too, like, when, like, if you run the peanut butter line, it's like a big, you have to kind of coordinate that, very specialized than the other
Mm-hmm.
products. Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, I'm kind of glossing over a lot of what kind of makes the job challenging, not just for me, in writing the schedule, but all these teams executing it. But on top of just how difficult or easy, yeah, we do all kinds of different brownies. So we have a peanut butter, we have different ones with tree nut, but allergens affect things all the way down to soy, egg, things like that. And
Yeah.
so we have a real robust food safety program that we follow here. And so there is a lot of planning that also goes into not just the baking and packaging departments, but our QA, our sanitation department that's, cleaning everything at the end of each day to ensure, allergens and things, that there's no cross contamination. So, even though we have these two main production teams, there's a lot of operation teams that are kind of making sure everything's running smoothly each day.
So I'm sure this is a big joke you probably get a lot, but do the QA people get to taste the product? I'm guessing.
They do, and I think some of them like it, and some of them have been here long enough that it turns out it can turn into a chore. So
yeah,
there's no shortage of brownies around here. So I think most people enjoy the brownies. I know. I'm not sick of them just yet. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember years ago I got to go on the tour of the Bourbon Trail, and there was a guy, there was a person there that's has an impeccable palate or something, and they could they would taste it and they could tell if anything's wrong, and yeah, it's pretty incredible. But
we definitely have quite a few people here with that skill set when it comes to brownies.
So. Oh, that's amazing. Just one other question on the kind of the nuts and bolts. Do you guys are you guys run around the clock production, or do you have like different shifts?
So for the most part, it is just it's not necessarily a single shift, but for production it is. And so, there's a lot that can go into it, but we have some people here as, sometimes as early as 4 a.m. to just make sure things are getting set for the day. And then our production typically just runs on a first shift. But like I mentioned before, especially the sanitation element, with a lot of the specialty equipment that we're using, those teams are here well into the evening. And so even though we kind of consider it to be a single shift, we're spanning sometimes 14, 15-hour days. So
right. Okay.
And we run 6 days a week as well.
Well, that's great. So shifting gears a little bit, kind of to more the management side of it. And I know you and I have talked, and you're kind of really trying to push using data and metrics and such to run the business, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. So maybe tell me a little bit about more what you do, and kind of what data you gather, what kind of stuff you do with it, those kind of things, whatever you feel.
Yeah. So, like you said, a big part of what I do is kind of looking at the data and analyzing and planning for the future. And, I think especially, I joined Killer Brownie about 2 years ago. And, at the time we had just decided to start implementing an ERP system, whereas before really everything was running through QuickBooks, Excel, and, lots of paper. And so I would describe, my time at Killer Brownie has been a lot of kind of that growing up moment of like, hey, let's get more organized with our information. And, it's not just about getting it done, but it's about how are we like planning an effective day and planning for the future. And so, we've been on that journey and kind of continue to be on that journey of how can we, keep things more organized? How can we streamline, so that way, our information is getting directly into the ERP. So that's definitely been a big focus. And I think the other, part of that is, how are we sharing that data? So that's also been a big focus for us this year. And so that's something that I put together. We share like weekly metrics company-wide. And so in that, we kind of report what were last week's sales, what was last week's production, what were our goals for the week, for the quarter, are we on track, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of really been a big focus that, those metrics aren't just for, the top people looking at it and reviewing numbers. It's a goal that we all have to be growing the business and accomplishing those goals. And so that's really become a big focus that, top to bottom, we're all looking at the same numbers and we all understand what's that, goalpost that we're all kind of aimed towards. So
yeah, that's huge. That's amazing. I guess, and maybe if you don't know, do you know kind of how did you guys know kind of like, what you were doing before wasn't going to work? Like you said, you kind of were cobbling together these different things. Was there kind of a tipping point where you're like, hey, we can't keep doing this anymore? Or I don't know, or kind of maybe walk me through if you know, maybe you weren't around at that time, but.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say that there was ever one big moment where everyone at once realized that things needed to change. I think it's more about how can we take the surprises of the future and actually be prepared for them. And I think that's really been our biggest focus of, we don't want to be caught off guard that as we continue to grow, that we don't know what it's going to take. And so, if we increase sales 20%, next year, we want to kind of have a good handle on, well, what's it going to take? Because it's awesome to see those sales increase, but from
Right.
that operation standpoint, we want to be able to have good numbers to be able to say, well, let's, if we're going to increase this much, we know it's going to take, this many more people. So, how are we getting those people hired and trained and ready for that instead of, reacting? It's kind of,
Yeah.
I think we in the past have had maybe just a few more moments of, oh, this was a little too reactionary. Like, let's be prepared. Let's set people up for success to be able to achieve those goals that we're setting.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I'm asking those questions because I've helped some other companies in that on that journey, and it takes time, and change is always tough for anybody,
Yeah.
right? It definitely is a process that doesn't, happen immediately. But I think, I know I tell people this, and they probably are sick of me hearing it, but data is the new oil, right? I mean, that's what
Yeah.
everybody says. And if you don't, the companies that can manage data or use data to kind of make decisions are the ones that are gonna succeed. So I think you guys definitely made the right move to try to invest um, in that area.
Yeah, I also think that's just a big part of any company that's growing. I think if there was one like common theme anywhere in the company, you don't go from 8 employees to 140 doing things the exact same way you did when you had 8 people. And so I think that's a big part of it is, you really learn to reevaluate every step of any process that exists because it's so easy to point to anything that, oh yeah, that used to be done by one person, now it's being done by 10 people. And there's all kinds of unique challenges that can come up from that. And I think to your point, that's where like the data becomes so important because it's the one thing that you can kind of look at to understand. And I think that's a mindset that we all keep because I think if you talk to anyone here, no one thinks we're at the finish line. Our goal is to just keep growing and keep growing. And so we
Yeah.
have a lot of conversations about even our processes that we have updated or, some of these new things that we've implemented. Is this sustainable? Is this going to work if we're 10 times bigger than we are now? And if not, well, what are we doing to prepare for it? Kind of in that same sense of preparing for the future and not just reacting to what's happening. So it's definitely
Right.
a huge focus for us this year.
And I'm guessing too, and I'm guessing, some of it, there's definitely got to be a lot of trial and error, right? You're like, hey, we're doing it this way
Oh yeah.
now. And then like, what if we did it this slightly different way? And then I'm guessing you have to try it and see and then reevaluate. Is that kind of something that
Yeah,
you
there's a lot of that. I mean, I'll say, just for me, there's so many, like those like micro decisions that you're making about how you do something, why you're doing it, that it can be challenging, especially, it's one of the best things about working for Killer Brownie is the culture that we've created is definitely one that a lot of people are really excited to be a part of. And so with that, you end up with a lot of experienced people that have been here a really long time, and sometimes that can be extra challenging where you're a part of, a team that, oh, when I was here 5 years ago, we didn't used to do things this way. And, how are we adapting? And, sometimes that can be really difficult to put that on yourself of like, well, I used to do it this way and it worked, but I need to learn to do it another way or, as we continue to grow. And so to your point about trial and error, there's a lot of that because, we don't always have the exact answer. There's no magic playbook that you can read on, the perfect way to run a business. And so there's a lot of that.
right. And not to deviate too far, but I saw something on social media on your guys' page the other day, which was really, I thought, really neat. Kind of speaks to your culture. As you said it said something about a teammate that had passed away, and you guys kind of put roped off the parking spot and put kind of memories of the person. I mean, I thought that was, I don't know, that's pretty moving just to see that. You don't see a lot of companies that care that much. So special shout out to you guys for that. That was really really encouraging to see that. So
Yeah, there's a lot of that here. I think it's a big part of what makes it so special and what makes so many people want to be a part of that journey and that growth is just the care that so many people show to each other, every single day. And when I reference, the culture, it's really what we mean by that is those core values that we instill in everybody, and a big part of that is recognizing one another. And you know, we try to do that every single day. We start off our mornings with a huddle where we rotate through where I might recognize you for a specific core value in a way that you showed it to me. And so that's just a small example of, we start each day off by trying to have that level of recognition. We have a company-wide meeting that we call Brownie Points every month, where we can write each other kind of these notes that are the brownie points, where you kind of write a similar thing, and we take time to do a full shutdown company-wide, where we all get together and share those. And I think there's just a lot that goes on here to really make sure that, we want to run a great company, make a great product, but we want to care about the people that are here and care for each other. And so it's a big part of what makes Killer Brownie so special.
Oh, it sounds great. Yeah, I'm proud to have you guys right where I live. Once I found that out, I didn't realize it was, but yeah, it's a great organization. Maybe just kind of, as a final kind of question, maybe, tell me a little bit about, I know we've kind of hit on a lot of this, but I think you've kind of described before, kind of like your role is kind of like a puzzle, right? You're doing all these different pieces and trying to fit the pieces together and trying to, manage kind of the day-to-day with being strategic. And I know there's a question in here somewhere, but I guess just give us some insights into what that's like. It's got to be,
how do we put the puzzle together each day?
Yeah, what challenges do you face, and kind of how do you approach it? I don't know, anything like that would be great just to share.
Yeah, I think so. For me, how do we put the puzzle together? A lot of it is the data that we're talking about, and how can we measure that data in an appropriate way? It's one thing to just look at sales, but obviously, like I referenced, we do carry a large number of SKUs that can be challenging for different operational reasons, allergens, things like that. And so, I spend a lot of time with our different, operation leaders, understanding what's difficult for them in their departments, what's easy for them in their departments, how those pieces fit together. And I think there's just a really large emphasis on the communication among everyone, so that way we're all kind of operating in the same way. And then beyond that, it's kind of reviewing that data of what are we selling, how fast can we make it, how can we plan this out in an effective way. But at the end of the day, it's also what you just said about the trial and error. There's a lot of things that we try out where we say, well, what if we do these two things together? Is there a way that maybe it'll go a little bit better? And we've definitely had some really awesome moments where we've realized we can do certain things so much faster. But I'll be the first to admit there's been plenty of times that we tried something that just didn't work.
Right.
But I think that's what's part of learning and growing. And what makes the team here so special is that we've got a lot of people that are really excited every day to try something new, to see if there's a better way we can do something. And there's definitely like a hunger that everybody has to keep getting better, and to not just keep a same old attitude. I don't think you'd find many people here who say, nah, we're not even going to try that because this is how we do things. That's just not really the attitude that we have here from top to bottom. There's a lot of humility from even leadership. And I'd be the first to say, even though, I maybe am the one that's writing the schedule, there's all kinds of great ideas, not even just from leadership, but from, our workers that are really doing the work, that know how it actually happens, that have given amazing feedback and ideas of, their thoughts, just because they're the ones doing it day in and day out. And so I think just having that kind of level of communication top to bottom is just really important, because no one person's going to have all the answers to everything, and it's really got to be a team approach to get it all figured out.
Well, that's great. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. But thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. And what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? They want to learn more about you or the company.
Yeah, I mean, like you referenced, we have an awesome social media presence. So shout out to our marketing team. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, sharing all the exciting things going on at Killer Brownie. So check us out.
Oh, thanks. They do. Yeah, I can attest to that. I've seen a lot of their marketing. It's really fun stuff, and it's great. So Well, thanks again, Andrew, so much for joining, and we'll catch everyone next time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Andy.